we'll go to Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here again today. Mr Whitby, in the November 2022 estimates, I asked you, quote, "I note that the tunnelling machine Florence was bogged up near Tantangara Reservoir. Can you confirm how long it was bogged and confirm that it is now back in operation?" End of quote. The answer you gave was, quote, "The tunnel boring machine hasn't been bogged, has not been bogged. It encountered soft ground. We have been progressing the tunnel boring machine through that zone with care and diligence." End of quote. In February 2023, I was reassured Florence was not bogged, and in May 2023 was advised it would progress shortly. Minister, today the ABC published a story with photos of Florence clearly in mud and water, and a story that says it was flooded in and unable to function from the moment it hit the soft ground a year ago. It moved a matter of metres. Further, the article goes on to say Snowy Hydro Authority knew it was bogged, even as they testified in Senate estimates that it was not. The authority was covering up the machinery to progress Florence. A slurry machine that lays down a base for the machine to travel over was not ordered when the water logging was discovered. It was only ordered when Florence became bogged. Minister, why is the government allowing the authority to deliberately mislead the committee?
Thanks for the question, Senator Roberts. I don't quite recall the evidence being provided in the terms that you suggest in your question, but I confess I don't exactly remember all of the testimony that was provided at all of the estimates. I'll invite Mr Barnes to respond.
Well, Minister, before you do, were they lying to you? When did you know about the machine being bogged? They haven't seen you.
Senator Roberts, I'll take that on notice. You'll understand that I don't have all of the communications between the authority and the shareholder ministers, so I'll see what I can provide.
So I'd like to know when you found out the machine was bogged, if you'd made inquiries beforehand, and were they lying to you?
Thank you. I'll take those on notice.
And whether or not you were misled.
Last one?
Whether or not you were misled.
Thank you, Senator Roberts.
So obviously there are many engineering terms, but bogged, paused or stuck all have subjective definitions. There's been no point since Florence encountered this incredibly soft and wet ground in November 2022 that the machine has not been able in some way to move forward. And in fact, as part of its stabilisation and commissioning of the slurry treatment plant, since December 2022, it has in fact moved 10 metres as part of that activity. So it is not bogged, it is able to move. In May, I've apologised for my perhaps optimism regarding the ability to get Florence moving at pace again. The full story on the slurry treatment plant is that Florence is going to hit what we know to be naturally occurring asbestos about, about 7 kilometres into its...
What, I'm sorry?
Asbestos. Into its journey about 7 kilometres in.
Naturally in the strata?
Yeah. And the slurry treatment plant is designed to handle those conditions. The incredibly soft ground it hit early in its journey was not predicted at that stage. So the slurry treatment plant, which was always envisaged, just not envisaged that quickly, was ordered and started to be designed as early as December 2022. And is now complete, commissioned, and once we receive an approval from the New South Wales Department of Planning and Environment, we'll be able to move forward.
Because on that, back in May, and I agree with your recollection, Senator Roberts, but you spoke, Mr Barnes, in May about the fact that the slurry treatment plant was coming, and you were quite... I took it from that evidence that it would be activated sooner rather than later, but you're saying it still hasn't been turned on.
I mean, to jog your memory, I think I said weeks, not months, and I should have said months, not weeks. It wasn't a mistake, it was my optimism at the time. The physical works to get the slurry plant complete and Florence able to move have all progressed. What I underestimated was the process with which to go through the approval process, given the sinkhole that formed in December is just outside our construction boundary.
Mr Barnes, could you give me on notice, please, the movement of the machine in terms of metres between November 2022 and February 2023, and between February 2023 and May 2023, and from May 2023 to now?
Yes. No reason why.
Thank you. Minister, it seems, on the face of it, that this is government misinformation, covering up a massive failure. Now, I'm not blaming you entirely for that, because this whole thing was started under Malcolm Turnbull as Prime Minister and Scott Morrison as Prime Minister. There was no fully disclosed business case. It was heavily redacted. There was no cost-benefit analysis done. The whole thing is based on a false premise. This is what happens when the top is rotten. I'm not referring to you as being rotten. I'm referring to the project and when it was first given go-ahead being rotten. But you're now carrying the can.
Is there a question, Senator Roberts?
Yes. Minister, are you asking questions? What questions are you asking about the rest of the project? Because this is serious stuff.
Senator Roberts, you're right that there have been... You are right in this regard. The project, as first announced by the Turnbull government, is not the project. It does not reflect the dimensions and characteristics of the project as we now understand it. Some of those changes and issues were known to the previous government and not revealed. Minister Bowen has made it very clear how disappointed he was when he came to government and discovered that aspects of the project, including significant delays and cost increases, had not been communicated. And as I indicated earlier in my evidence, when Mr Barnes was appointed, the expectation from the shareholder ministers was communicated very clearly to the board, and I understand through the department to Mr Barnes, that we wanted to see this project back on track. We wanted the new management to examine it and provide advice about how to get it back on track. And it took some time. It wasn't possible to do that in weeks. It actually has taken Mr Barnes some time. And when that advice was provided, it was to the minister. He then sought to communicate about it very directly with the Australian public. These are complex projects. We accept that. And as I say, we have noted, I think, a constructive tone and a more open approach to communication from the engagements we are presently having with Snowy Hydro, and we hope to see this project, which, as indicated, is an important project for the energy system and the Australian people, back on track.
So let's move to something else that the government has lied about. Again, this mightn't be ministerial staff or the ministers themselves, but we know that the government, the agency, has lied about the toxic gas in the shaft coming from isocyanate used to strengthen the ground in the absence of the proper machinery, the slurry machine. That was more government misinformation, wasn't it, Minister?
You know, I'm happy to talk to this. You're referring to an incident that occurred in early July where polyurethane foam, which is sometimes used in front of the tunnel boring machine, and if it comes into contact with water can create isocyanate gas. It did so. The incident was reported quickly. The access to the site was restricted. Additional personal protective equipment was provided. and monitoring was put in place.
What was that personal protective equipment?
You can do positive pressure face masks, which stop any gases entering. Does
that involve carrying gas or oxygen? Air or oxygen?
No, it's, I don't know how the reverser flow works, but you picture the large face masks with a positive flow meter which have a filter. I don't know the details of how those machines work, but they do protect the individual. We have actually stopped using the polyurethane foam and reverted to grout only.
So lives are at stake?
Absolutely. This is a complex project with many hazards.
And the economy is at stake if this project doesn't live up to nameplate design. So how much is Florence worth, and who pays if you can't get it out or if it comes out as scrap?
Florence is not identified as a single item in the project line, but between $100 and $200 million would be an estimate of a tunnel boring
Between
machine
100
cost.
and 200?
Yeah. But Florence is able to progress its journey once we receive the necessary approvals.
We'll need to rotate the call, Senator
Okay.
Roberts. Do you have a final question? We
I'll
can
ask.
come back to you.
Yeah, okay. In May I asked about the updated cost and Mr Barnes replied, quote, "We haven't got an updated cost here and we'll provide that in months." Your updated cost is now 12 billion rather? Is that it?
That's correct.
Okay, based on that, the total cost, does that include two major expenses, transmission lines to get the power in and out and the ongoing cost of Florence still being bogged?
It is the cost to complete the project to the transmission lines at the power station, including all action necessary to complete the head race tunnel, which is where...
So any additional transmission lines needed to take the power out are not part of that project cost for Snowy?
We have one transmission connection from the power station up to the grid that Snowy Hydro pays for on an ongoing tariff.
My understanding is that the current transmission lines are not adequate for after Snowy 2 comes in.
So for Snowy 2 to get its full potential, then there is an extension to the transmission grid required.
Right, thank you. So the total cost
We'll
of
need
this
to move
project...
on, Senator Roberts.
Sorry?
We'll need to rotate the call.
Okay.
Can I
We
just
will
check, Senator Grogan? I think I took on question I notice a series of questions from Senator Roberts. I had previously indicated that these are questions for shareholder ministers and I would take it on notice on their behalf. I just want to clarify that that's also what you were seeking in the other questions that you put to me later on.
I'm happy to get an answer from the government ministers.
In relation
It doesn't
to
have
the
to be
shareholder
you,
ministers.
just the person in charge would be perfect.
Thanks, Senator Roberts.